America's southern border. Safe, serene, peaceful. Before that, less than 1 year ago, this was a much different scene. A border is more than a line on a map. It's America's shield against chaos and invasion. It's a shield against anyone, anything, any organization, any country, any cartel that would dare undermine American values. I'm here at the Hidalgo Border Patrol crossing to honor the great work of President Trump, his administration, and all the heroic men and women of the Border Patrol who honor this shield and protect us and keep us safe every day. And thanks to the work of the Trump administration, our borders are quiet for the first time in years. America's borders didn't start with walls. They began with a commitment to sovereignty, from the founders' vision to effective policies that protected our nation. Today, in places like the Rio Grande Valley, we see how modern technology and physical barriers are protecting the founders' vision of sovereignty and our national security. In the far south of Texas, where the Rio Grande winds through the desert and the brushlands, lies a place where history and destiny meet. Long before borders, this valley was a living corridor, home to tribes who fished its waters and built their lives from the land. Spanish settlers followed to what is now Mexico and the United States, expanding west, shaping a nation that would one day define this river as the line between two worlds. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 set the Rio Grande as the border between Mexico and the United States. But a border drawn on paper rarely captures the truth on the ground. Families, cultures, and economies remained intertwined. Trade flowed freely. Towns grew up in the shadows of the same mesquite trees. For generations, the border was less a barrier and more a meeting point, a symbol of exchange and coexistence. But as the world changed, so did the pressures on that line. Wars on drugs, waves of migration, and rising global unrest began to test what that boundary meant. What was once a passage of opportunity became a target for exploitation by smugglers, cartels, and those who saw weakness as invitation. Ron, one of my favorite things to do is to be on location talking about policy, but with a historical perspective.
Very good.
And I know your game. And so here we are, feet from the Rio Grande, the southern border. It's got a lot of history, beautiful history on both sides of the river. People who don't know this part of the country need to. But I want to talk to you about how the history of America's border protection here has always been connected to our core values as a nation.
So it is a place where if the public policy isn't right, it affects all Americans, right? So if you're going to establish the rule of law, one of the places you ought to do it is that line on the map, which is in someone's neighborhood, in someone's front yard or backyard. And it's important for both countries to have a level of control, a level of awareness, and a level of safety and security, because real people live here. And if we don't get it right, they're the first ones affected. But as we talked earlier, it affects the rest of the country as well. Most of the time in my early career, the problems with regard to migration and out of control migration was it was a problem between us and Mexico. Most of the flow was people that came from Mexico, people from Central and South America. This is the closest place to the U.S. that they can get, and so if you're walking or depending on a smuggler or a freight train, this is a place that they choose. Making sure that people understand both, like politically and policy-wise, that this, what the policies are in Washington, what the enforcement regime looks like, what our relationship is with Mexico to affect, what happens there and what happens here. And then you have the whole situation with drugs. Getting the policy right, establishing that rule of law, making that line matter, helps all of those problems, right? Reduce the chaos and improve the quality of life here first, which stretches out into both countries, and then work on some of the longer term. What do we do with these cartels? They could destabilize large parts of Mexico, and how do we help them with that?
How do our successes and failures over the years regarding border protection, regarding Mexico policy, lead us to where we are today? And what lessons moving forward as we're trying to figure out how to help Mexico with the cartels, how to continue the expansion of border enforcement here? Give us a sense of your crystal ball.
We've proven to the American people, right? They saw this chaos in Biden for the 4 years. They claimed it wasn't a problem. They claimed the border was secure. That we all know that wasn't the case. There were real effects of that. And this administration, President Trump's leadership, we've ended the nonsense. It's now a much more secure border than it's ever been. Being able to sustain that is part of the future, right? We've got to keep the policies in place that work, because we've shown the American people, we've shown Mexico, that this physical thing can happen if you get the policy pieces right, if you get people thinking about this in the right way, and there are in fact consequences for coming across the border. So you help stabilize what goes on in the physical border, and then we can help them. Mexico has a chance. I think in the early days of the campaign, when the President Sheinbaum in Mexico was new in her job, there was a lot of rhetoric back and forth, but this whole idea of a tariff regime and what our neighbors are going to do and how we're going to trade and who gets the advantage and how can we help each other, President also changed that game as well, right? He forced them to do things they probably wouldn't have done because they wanted to keep the important trade relationship that exists. And so that's better for both economies. We're all going to gain from that. But he put them in a place where if they didn't cooperate, it would cost them a lot more.
In the 21st century, the Rio Grande Valley became the center of a national conversation, one about sovereignty, security, and the responsibilities of a free nation. Here, policies were tested, walls were built, and technology advanced to meet modern challenges. For many, it wasn't just about enforcement. It was about preserving order, dignity, and safety. The border became more than geography. It became a mirror reflecting America's strength and sometimes its divisions. For nearly 2 centuries, the Rio Grande has marked where America begins and where its values are tested. Each era has reshaped that boundary, but the purpose remains the same: to defend the nation's sovereignty, to ensure the security of its people, and to safeguard the promise that this land, this idea of America, endures. Because the border is not just a line on a map. It's a declaration of who we are and what we are willing to protect. These aren't just barriers. They're protecting who we are and the country in which we hope to see our children and grandchildren have the opportunity to raise their families. The crisis at our border isn't abstract. It's drugs flooding communities and killing our loved ones, human trafficking exploiting the most vulnerable, and a breakdown of law that threatens every American.
Ron, a lot of success thus far this year under this new administration, and that's wonderful, but there are still threats. And so you wake up in the morning, your agents on the front line wake up in the morning, what are they dealing with right now, and what are they doing to mitigate those threats?
So we have gotten really good on travel into the U.S. by air and mostly on land as well, like pre-vetting people and those kinds of things. But that physical border in between the ports is still a challenge. There are still people who think they can come across the border and get away from us or not get prosecuted or not have a consequence. And so we're dialed in on who those people are and why they're coming. We recognize that there's still an imbalance in lifestyles, quality of life, wages, between our neighbor with Mexico. So we have to understand that there's still a desire of people to try to make it into the U.S. And now one of the challenges is these cartels got really powerful over the last 4 years. They could smuggle at will, and so they have lots of resources. They can do a lot of things that no Fortune 500 company could do because of the rules and the policy and the taxes, all those things. Understanding what those threats are and giving us the tools to combat that as well. And so continue to work on the physical border, find out what the motivation. One of the motivations we found out is the cartels are telling would-be illegal migrants in Mexico that we've changed the policy, that Trump has gone back into like a previous policy and that they can get released into the U.S. None of that is true. The policy, the physical border, and now we got to work on what's in people's minds and what they really believe. And so we've got to refute what these cartels are trying to fool people with actual facts and actual consequence.
In the Rio Grande Valley, the crisis unfolds daily. Lives lost to human trafficking, strained resources, and the men and women of Customs and Border Protection risking their lives defending against invasion.
I can't get over the fences here. The last time that I was down here when it was a much bigger problem in terms of the number of people coming over, spots like this were filled with illegal aliens and with your agents. A lot has changed.
Yes, it's dramatic changes. Again, the executive orders, the policy change, the leaning in of Mexico because of the tariff discussion. So a lot of things have changed. It's still the same border, right? You still have some of the same threats, but if you average out the number of people that were coming during the Biden regime, that was over 5,000 people every 24 hours. That same number as we stand here today is less than 200. So you get like a 97% decrease in the volume of activity on the southwest border. So all the threats are smaller. All of the bad things that could happen are not happening anymore. There's not a humanitarian crisis where thousands of people would be standing here waiting for the attention of a Border Patrol agent, overwhelmed all the systems and facilities that would be in the interior. And so having that change allows them to do more. It's safer for everybody. It's even safer for the migrants that are coming across. It is really hard to cross the border now. And the inputs are meaningful, right? It used to be fence and wire to stop basically a riot or a bum rush at the border. Now the military's here. They've helped fortify some of the wall. They've helped improve access at the border. There's 10,000 of those boots on the ground side by side with the Border Patrol. But their job now is just helping us, and there's a lot less to do, and so they can cover a lot more area.
America's southern border, safe, serene, peaceful. It's been this way since January 20th, 2025. Before that, less than 1 year ago, this was a much different scene.
Ron, we could have this conversation anywhere, but it's really important to have it here on the border for obvious reasons, but in particular for me, when I look at the big, beautiful wall, I see just a statement about American sovereignty, about the rule of law, about honoring the heroism of you and your colleagues. But there's also a lot more in terms of other methods of border enforcement. And this, where we are walking now, is one of the best places to see those. So teach us.
Right, yeah, so it does have a symbolism to it, right? It says, well, there's no mistake about where the border is or what we're trying to accomplish here. And so it has that feature, but it also makes a really big difference in how the physical operation of controlling the border works. It provides an anchor for access to the border. Almost all wall comes with a road. So that gives lateral access for the agents to do patrols near and at the wall. We hang technology on the wall. We light it up in certain locations. And so, again, it's making that statement. It says, you're not going to be able to cross here easily. And then we use this technology so that the agents can work more efficiently, right? You can remotely monitor these cameras. The technology tells you when people are approaching the wall, so you can mount a response. Because at the end of the day, you have to have boots on the ground to finalize what's going on, right? You got to put hands on the people who elect to come anyway. The wall has lots of meanings to a lot of people, but what is most important for is it lets us anchor the operation. It's an anchor for access, it's an anchor for safety and security, and it tells everybody where the border is. If someone does something nefarious on the U.S. side, they can't just run back into Mexico. That's a problem, mostly at the land border, not as much on the river. But that happens here, right? They stop or they try to attempt a vehicle stop of a drug load somewhere closer to town, And these guys will just drive as fast as they can back into the river, literally drive back into the river, and so they can get away. If you have physical structure, you're controlling the border for both of those activities, right? It's harder for people to cross. It gives you that physical anchor for technology and boots on the ground response, and it doesn't let the bad guys come and go at will.
Ron, the deterrence policies of the administration are clearly working. I mean, here we are, it's very obvious. It's a quiet day.
Yeah.
You couldn't say that 9 months ago.
It's much more quiet on the border than I've experienced in most of my career. And so we always knew, the president has led on this idea, supported by the secretary, like consequences matter. We knew that. The people on the line here will tell you that if you allow bad behavior to continue, this is true in our own homes. You allow bad behavior to continue, you get more of it. And so if you put a consequence against people who are coming across the border and giving up and trying to find their way into the United States, that's over. The nonsense is over. So the president's policy of declaring an emergency at the border, stop the invasion, not allowing the apparatus of government to release people into the United States, which happened under Biden. 85% of every arrest got released into the U.S. And so at that point, you're encouraging people to come. That nonsense is over. There's no encouragement to come. If you come now, you will likely be apprehended because we've got more capability across the board. You will most likely be prosecuted. So the Interagency is helping both with the physical presence from the Department of Defense or Department of War. You have the consequences brought to us by the federal prosecutor's offices saying, hey, we're presenting these cases. These people came across the border illegally. That's a felony in the U.S. if you do it more than once. And so those consequences exist. Those that get prosecuted and those that don't are removed quickly after. And so that's deterrence. That keeps people from selling all of their things and putting themselves into the hand of a smuggler and risking this dangerous journey. Because they can't, the end game is a trip back home. The policies right now, resources are now catching up. The reconciliation bill from Congress now gives us the opportunity to solidify the physical border presence, both with boots on the ground, enhance the policies and then the physical infrastructure, allow us to access the border and then deter people from coming with wall-like structure, the sensors and the technology that helps surveil the border so you can stretch out the capability of the patrol and then having agents.
It strikes me thinking about this from the standpoint of helping to Congress and the administration to shape policy on the border is when the reconciliation bill came up, Heritage was asked, what do you think about the bill? We thought the bill was good, but where we started was the funding for border enforcement. That border enforcement's vital. But the reason that worked is because the president and vice president, the administration, all of you have been so good that this isn't just about building a wall and the other methods of enforcement. This is about national sovereignty. And the American people responded to that because it also has the benefit of being true.
Right, and then there were some strategic things that happened in the dialogue, right? We know that President Trump was always a fierce advocate for securing the country, making it safe, making America safe again, securing the border. He is the political figure he is because he innately understood the American people wanted the same thing. And so now those tools are here, and we have the ability to deliver on those promises in a way unlike I've ever seen before. The people on the front line always knew that if you give them the right kind of tools, they're going to fix this problem, and then they started to see it. And some of the strategic things, Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, other like-minded leaders said, hey, we're going to take these people that are released at the border in our state and we're going to send them to New York City. We're going to send them to Martha's Vineyard. Those kinds of things put this issue not just in border communities, because it's always here. This is a constant thing that if you live in this neighborhood that you have to deal with. But now the cities had to deal with it, Chicago, New York. And so now the national press has to cover the disaster and the crisis at the border during the Biden regime. And so the president takes his previously understood common sense ideas and says, you know what, we can fix this.
Our borders stand guard, strong, steadfast, essential. They call us to fight for our security, rule of law, and national identity, to protect our nation from the often quiet threats that build into existential crises over time.
Ron, in addition to the human tragedy at the border, we also have the tragedy of media propaganda, which has just purposefully distorted the story here. Around us are fences, barriers that you would use in case the border were rushed. I noticed that they're gathering dust, some of them overgrown with grass. A real emphatic example of policies working.
Yeah, 100%. This material is here to combat. You'll remember not too long ago we were talking about caravans coming toward the border. And so the smugglers thought if they massed enough people that they could just rush through the port of entry. And so these fences were procured during that time, during that emergency, so we could prevent that from happening. We were largely successful in that, but that is not the concern now, right? The policy has gotten right. The cartels, the would-be smugglers, they understand that they can't prevail in that way anymore. The volume and the velocity of people coming has changed so dramatically. We're glad to have this here just in case, but we really are not in a situation where we're going to be using it anytime soon because of the great work that the front line has done, backed by the policy and the will in the White House. You know, a lot of young people are confused, like, why can't you just let these people come and have the lives that you had and your ancestors had in the U.S.? And I understand that. I understand like that compassion that we all have, right? These agents that are out here having to deal with, they're the most compassionate people you've ever seen. And a lot of us share an immigration background in our history in America, but if you keep giving away that sovereignty, if you let anybody that has enough energy to swim that river stay, then you're going to give up all of the things that they're actually coming for. And so that is really important. And like you said, the American people expect certain things. They know that their relatives stood in line, paid the fees, went and got their fingerprints taken, took the test, and gave an oath to this country. They're privileged to be here, and they want that to be preserved.
Weak borders erode wages and dilute our culture. Strong ones preserve our future for generations to come.
I've always been worried about what's going on the border. You obviously have been because this has been your career, but one man deserves a lot of credit here, purely from policy and a reminder to the American people that what happens here is about every American, even if they're thousands of miles from this border. What is it specifically, Ron, based on your expertise, that Donald Trump has done, that his administration has done to actually secure the border?
Well, it's will, right? He has the mandate of the American people who put him in office. He became the political figure he is because of him saying that we don't have to tolerate thousands of people coming across the border every night. We don't have to do that. And there are ways to fix it. He's a big advocate of the wall. He's a huge advocate of the workforce. But having somebody in the Oval Office that says, we are not going to do this anymore. The nonsense has to end. We are being invaded. We're going to change the whole quality of life in America if we don't stop this. And so it starts with him. It starts with him saying, this is why I'm here. We owe this to the American people, and he's super enthusiastic about it. He's a big advocate of the workforce. He knows what agents do, and he wants them to do it well. And then the executive orders have really, like, the momentum from the activity, like, you are not going to release people that come into the country illegally anymore. So the end of catch and release, declaring an emergency, we're being invaded at the border, it needs to stop. His leadership with regard to the personnel that he had selected for cabinet positions, like, everybody is all in on the success of the administration, and they know that this is the top tier as it relates to priority. He's gotten the interagency to work together in a seamless way. It is so cohesive. I've never seen anything like it. I was in government a long time. I was in the bureaucracy at the headquarters at Border Patrol, and so we are dependent on ICE to do certain things so that CBP can succeed. And ICE and CBP and the department is depending on the Department of Justice for us to be successful. When something happens, a country X, let's say Mexico in this case, we're standing right next to it, Mexico says, hey, we're not taking repatriated minors from this time to this time. And so we would go to them and we would plead and cajole and we would try to get them to see it from our point of view. That's going to be a real problem in the operation. And so we'd have a meeting, then we might go to the embassy and the consulate, and if we get really upset, we'll send a letter.
Oh, the infamous letter,
yeah.
Sending a letter.
And they even have a French name, it's the Démarche. We're going to send it Démarche, right? Because they're not cooperating with previously established agreements or norms. That doesn't happen today. There are people in the State Department I have never been in the same room with, but a request from the commissioner, a request from the secretary to their secretary, and I'll call you right back. We are working diligently 6 days a week. We're communicating amongst the interagency in a very cohesive way, and no problem goes unaddressed, and the problems get sorted, and when you need someone else's department to help you, it gets done quickly. And so that's a testament to the personnel that the president has selected and put in charge of this.
Ultimately, just sheer will, respecting, honoring the will of the American people, and also understanding that what happens here is so important, not just for border communities, but for all of us who appreciate American sovereignty.
That's right. That's right. And, under the previous administration, thousands and thousands of people coming every 24 hours. Now that's down to hundreds, 100 or so, a little bit more. And so all of the chaos that ensues around that is over. So you give the people that have the tools to fix this problem all of your support, the will, like you said. That makes such a difference. And it preserves peace, order, and quality of life here. But the New Yorks and the Chicagos and the LAs, they might not want to admit it in the blue areas, but they're benefiting as well.
Borders aren't just lines. They're the delineation showing who we are, where we are, and what is worth fighting to protect.
One of the things that drives me crazy, just as a layman, as an American, is the demonization of the heroic men and women of Border Patrol, of ICE, of law enforcement generally. The demonization from the radical left, too many figures in the media, some elected members of our own Congress. If it's driving me crazy, Ron, it's got to drive you crazy trying to lead this organization of truly great patriots.
They don't deserve it. They really don't deserve it. They deserve our prayers. They deserve our praise. The front line does so much for all of us. They come out here knowing exactly what the risks are and doing all the things that they can to prepare for those risks. They don't deserve so-called leadership, calling them names, vilifying them for them essentially doing there's people in Congress, some governors, some blue city mayors, talking about how they're kidnapping people or making people disappear and that there's no due process. If you think about those folks in Congress that are saying that, they fund the process. Due process exists. There is a system by which you can come to the United States, you can be invited in, you can be vetted and allowed to stay, you can visit, you can raise a family here. All of those things are true in the law. And it is also true in the law that if you cross the border illegally, you've broken the law and there needs to be consequences for that. Otherwise, why do we have a border?
What can fellow Americans do to assist on that effort and on the effort of your agents on the front line generally?
Well, I would like them to encourage to find out what is going on, ask an agent what they do, praise them for what they do, and prayers always help. A lot of people don't understand what happens at the border. Take the time to find that out. Talk to an agent who does it, and pat them on the back for what they do.
This crisis has eroded our foundation, but it's reversible with resolve.
Ron, one of the things that I'm really curious about is your thoughts on how, in addition to all the border tactics and the improvement in deterrence and border protection, that the real reason we do this is to protect American values. And one of those, of course, is the dignity of work. That is to say, we have to have a protected border all around the United States so that the American workforce can do their jobs.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. We have the mission, and it's the root, simply put, keep bad things and bad people out of the border. So we know there's a threat from drugs and cartels and narcotics coming in, but there's also an exploitation that occurs, right? Large numbers of people from foreign lands coming into the United States. There are employers, the cartels, they do it on their side. They sometimes do it on our side where they'll exploit workers. They'll put people in situations that are dangerous. They traffic in labor trafficking, worse kinds of trafficking as well. And so having the jobs preserved for Americans to keep the skill level up, keep the quality of life and the quality of the products that they produce. We don't need to import that level of workforce. And I think people often forget this, but in Trump 1, real wages for American workers went up in Trump 1. I expect we're going to see the same kind of results as the border gets more and more secure and it starts to impact, some of the businesses that might exploit illegal labor.
I really mean this when I say it. I don't mean it as a political term. And although I'm a big fan of President Trump, I don't even mean it in a way to necessarily just celebrate him, but I think he's totally right that we're at the beginning of the golden age for America. And what I would posit to you is that what you just said about the American workforce and American values, we're getting that right here at the border. It's essential we do that if in fact we're going to live in a golden age.
Yes, it is really common sense, right? You want to protect what we have by keeping the bad things and the bad people. And sometimes that bad thing is workers that are exploited on the U.S. side. They displace, low-skilled workers in the U.S. It starts with that physical line, right? But it really affects everybody on both sides of it.
Rule of law is our anchor, securing our values that make us strong.
So the opposite of golden age is really dark. And what's at stake, therefore, if we don't continue to get this right?
The influence that we see, the maligned influence that we see in other countries, in Mexico in the case of the cartels, right? They have enormous power to destabilize cities and towns and maybe the government itself. And so if we don't protect our side of the border, if we don't combat that in real time, that becomes part and parcel of what happens in the United States. So preserving the quality of life, not just at the border, but in the interior as well, right? We don't want this maligned influence coming into the United States, and if we don't protect the border, we leave ourselves open to that kind of exploitation.
It also strikes me that for Americans 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles from the border would think that maybe the American dream isn't possible if we can't even honor the rule of law by having border protection at the southern border.
It is really an example, right? It's that physical place where if the public policy is right, if you have a will like we do now with Trump in the White House, it's a physical manifestation of what do we care about? We care about protecting things. We care about protecting what happens here. We're giving the tools and the policies to the men and women on the front line to do their job because it matters to the people that are 3,000 miles away.
To ignore our borders is to surrender our future. To secure them is to rebuild our nation's strength. Stand up, defend them, and make our border safe again.
This river tour we just did with your colleagues, it's so obvious to me, just as a layman, the challenges that your men and women face every day. Tell us a little bit about that, what they confront, not just the people coming across, but some pretty wild terrain.
Yeah, this is an example of where the operations comes all together full circle, right? You have to protect them on the water. They have to have platforms that are capable in the Rio Grande River. It's right next to Mexico. They're very close to where the threats are. So high level of training, high level of safety protocols, and we got to go out on patrol with them and see how close they are to what could be the action, what could be the threats. And so, we want them to do this because this is where the action happens. If someone's going to cross the border illegally, they've got to make it through that river first. And so patrolling that and keeping it safe is really important.
You know what strikes me, Ron, is we're talking about the tactical, which is really important for the average American to see and understand. There's something philosophical that strikes me having been down here for a couple of days with you and your staff. And it is that what you're doing is protecting America. It's protecting American citizenship, including for people around the world, including Mexico, who want to come here legally.
Right, no, we're preserving life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? We need to be safe in our homes. That means we need to be safe at the border. The people that live here, what happens here doesn't stay here. And so these men and women are out there preserving our ability for us to pursue our dreams in the United States. And we have plenty of generous opportunities for people to immigrate into the United States. We just want them to use the front door and not the back door.
One of the greatest honors we have at Heritage is to highlight the sacrifice, the heroism, the service of people like you. Why did you start doing what you're doing, and what appeal would you make to the American people about the vocation that it is to work for Border Patrol or ICE?
Yeah, as a young man, I wanted to serve in law enforcement. I thought it would be a career that I was interested in, that I was enthusiastic about. But then once you get here and you get to learn how this all works, and you get to work with just wonderful people, all pursuing the same goal. Preserving our way of life, protecting America, giving back to the greatest country in the world. And having the opportunity to give back like that is something that I've taken to heart. I've had a really great opportunity to meet people all over the country that are serving us. And right now we're in the middle of one of the largest recruiting efforts we've ever had. So we're eager to add to our team young men and women that are eager to serve the country.
Ron Vitiello, it's been a real pleasure. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Every morning, men and women in green step into silence, knowing the miles ahead may hold anything: a rescue, a confrontation, or simply the long rhythm of vigilance. They are Border Patrol agents, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters, tasked with guarding one of the most complex frontiers on Earth. Their post is not an easy one. In the canyons and the river crossings, the work is constant. They track footprints in the sand, follow drone feeds and sensors, pull stranded travelers from swift currents. Some days they face heat that scorches metal. Other nights, cold that cuts through armor and bone. The border never sleeps, and neither does duty. Behind every badge is a person carrying stories the public seldom hears. Stories of exhaustion, of compassion, of quiet pride. Moments when an agent finds a lost child and wraps them in a blanket. Moments when the weight of the mission feels heavier than the gear they wear. They stand between laws written far away and lives unfolding right in front of them. They must balance vigilance with mercy, enforcement with humanity. It's a line as thin and fragile as the river they patrol. For some, the job means weeks away from family. For others, it means confronting danger. They train not only to protect, but to preserve, to keep order amid chaos. Their work is measured not in headlines, but in the lives safeguarded, the calm maintained, the unseen prevented. These agents show up before dawn, after storms, in heat and in stillness, because they believe in something larger than themselves, the safety of their nation, the order of its law, and the promise of its people. So today, and every day, we thank them for standing watch when the rest of the country sleeps, for walking miles few ever see, and for holding the line with courage, compassion, and quiet resolve. Along the river's edge, the story continues, and so do those who guard it.
This is our border. This is our heritage and our future. This is our America.